NBA free agency underway. The deal's coming fast. We're going to start in Dallas. Kyrie Irving agreeing to a 3-year, $126 million contract. Kyrie, one of 7 players to average 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game last season. Draymond Green back with Steph and Clay and Golden State, agreeing to a 4-year, $100 million deal. Those 3 have combined for the 3rd most playoff wins by any trio in NBA history. Chris Middleton returns to the Bucks on a 3-year deal that is going to pay him over $100 million. Middleton only played 33 games last season due to right knee soreness and wrist injuries. And Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers agreeing to a 5-year max extension that could be worth up to $260 million. Halliburton was one of 3 players to average 20 points and 10 assists last season. And Fred VanVleet going from undrafted in 2016 to a 3-year, $130 million contract in 2023 with the Rockets, marking the largest contract for any undrafted player in NBA history.
Well, we're intrigued because we have senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski in studio, and he has a very early Woj bomb. This is great. Justin, what'd you find out?
Yeah, Hannah, I'm told Max Strus from the Miami Heat, he's agreed to a 4-year, $63 million sign-and-trade deal that will land him with the Cleveland Cavaliers. A couple other players in the deal, Cedi Osman, Lamar Stevens from Cleveland to San Antonio, a 2nd-round pick. But the key to this, the Cavaliers adding more shooting to that lineup. Their GM, Kobe Altman, in the last 24 hours, bringing in Max Strus, George Niang in a free agent deal with Philadelphia, and re-signing his own shooting guard, Caris LeVert. So Cleveland, a real priority for them in the offseason was to fortify their shooting. They've done it now. Strus's agent, Mark Bartelstein, tells me 4 years, $63 million to land Strus with the Cavs.
Wow, the Cavs just keep getting stronger, up-and-coming team. But I want to ask you really quickly about Miami, because now they've lost 2 starters from the team that went to the finals in Gabe Vincent and Max Strus. The Damian Lillard question is still out there. We've heard talk about Miami maybe being in play should Portland look for a trade partner. With those 2 off the table, does that affect the situation at all?
It does not. If Damian Lillard does become available in trade talks, he is not now. He has not asked for a trade. The team is telling teams they are not trading him when they call. But if that changes, Miami still is positioned to be a factor in that. Certainly their willingness to take on Lillard's contract is big. But they have contracts and they have draft picks moving forward that they could use in a deal.
Still enough to get that deal done, should that become possible.
Right.
Let's talk about the first domino to fall and go all the way back to Fred VanVleet, a Houston Rocket. Talk to us about what went into that move.
Yeah, 3 years, $130 million for Fred VanVleet. Toronto tried very hard to keep him, but VanVleet goes to a very young Houston team that is flush with cap space, that is still out in the market after Dylan Brooks, after Brook Lopez. And I think for Ime Udoka, getting a point guard who's coming off an all-star season in his prime, 1st in the league in deflections last year, 3rd in steals, brings a defensive presence to a Houston team that very much needs it, and a young group that needs a leader. He showed up in Fred VanVleet.
Boy, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Lopez. Chris Middleton back with the Bucks. We'll see what happens there. Also, the Grizzlies giving Desmond Bane a max contract. So they have their 3 core players. They have Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Bane, all locked up. Why was that so critical for Memphis?
Desmond Bane is he has done nothing but get better every year. His habits, his shooting, his work, high IQ player. This is a player that teams can sleep well at night when they invest in. And now in Memphis, to have, their 3 best young players locked up. They bring in Derrick Rose, they bring in Marcus Smart, who certainly bring different dimensions of leadership to that locker room. And Smart, certainly a player in his prime. But Desmond Bane, $207 million guaranteed deal. This is a player who made as big of a jump as anybody in the league last year, and I think Memphis knows they can just count on him night in, night out, and there's a great relationship among Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant.
Yeah, a guy that is a stabilizing force, particularly with Morant suspended for the first 25 games of this season. Quickly, I know you've already had breaking news at this young hour of the day. Some other things that you're looking towards that perhaps could come down the pike.
Yeah, and I think they're revolving around the Houston Rockets and the cap space that they have left. Brook Lopez, who Milwaukee is trying very hard to keep. They locked up Chris Middleton yesterday, but they certainly want Brook Lopez back on that team with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And then another former Memphis Grizzly, Dylan Brooks. He's in great demand in this marketplace. Talked with Milwaukee last night. Houston, I think he'll get closer to a decision today.
So his fire, his intensity seen by some teams as something that they need
there
and want to bring to the table.
Yeah, there are no shortage of suitors for Dylan Brooks.
Yeah. Woj, thanks.
Thanks, Hannah.
Our NBA front office insider Bobby Marks here to break down some moves. Let's start with San Antonio and their moves this morning that Woj just talked about. How do these affect their options as they continue to try and build around Victor Wembanyama?
Yeah, they had about $34 million coming into this morning. Remember, you have to spend 90% of the salary cap, so roughly about 22 of that they have to spend by the first day of the regular season. Cedi Osman from Cleveland, when you slide him in there, certainly a $6.7 million guaranteed contract. Lamar Stevens was on a non-guaranteed. They partially protected that. So that shrinks their room down to about $25 million. Last night they signed Tre Jones, 2 years, $20 million. Still $25 million left. I still think there's a priority to go out and get yourself a center. Jakob Poeltl's off the board. Mason Plumlee would look really good there as far as a protector for Victor here. Paul Reed also. Point guards, as I said, you signed Tre Jones left. There's really nothing left on the market except for D'Angelo Russell, and that might be a little bit too rich. Maybe a player like Patrick Beverley on a vet minimum, or maybe a little bit more here. But I like what San Antonio has done. They're not spending everything right now. They're just kind of, filling out the pieces.
On the centers, you didn't point to Brook Lopez. Too rich for their blood, maybe?
Yeah, I think for Brook, you're looking at going back to Milwaukee, and I think Brook's number is going to be closer to 20.
Okay.
Or maybe potentially Houston. Houston still has about $25 million in room.
Houston's working, man. They're doing some work. Okay, let's go to L.A.
Yeah.
Lots of praise for the Lakers after day one. And this morning, Per Woj making another move, agreeing to a 2-year deal with Jackson Hayes. So how would you evaluate the Lakers' moves thus far?
All right, so this morning I gave them an A.
Yes, you did.
I am going to increase that. I am giving an A+.
Okay.
Something I did not get at Marist College. I am giving them an A+ this morning here. And this is why. I mean, look at what they've done. They can bring it back or a little bit of mix and match. Gabe Vincent yesterday. They still have D'Angelo Russell's rights. They can re-sign him. Keep an eye on D'Angelo. They went out and got Austin Reeves is still a restricted free agent.
Yep.
I would expect him back for 54. Somewhere, keep an eye on that today. They went out and got Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish. This is the move that puts them over the top here. Jackson Hayes, I had him at $5 million. He comes in at the veteran minimum exception here.
Wow.
A protector, rim protector, former first-round picks. New Orleans did not give him a qualifying offer. I forgot about Rui Hachimura. How could I forget about him? I mean,
and he had a good playoff run.
Well, and this is what I like about them. Last year, the Lakers had 3 players making $40 million or more. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. Right. Everyone else was veteran minimums. You've got a nice balance right now as far as flexibility if you ever have to do a deal down the road. So A+ for the Lakers.
See that smile? Yeah. That smile says it all right there. Bobby Marks, thank you, sir.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.